Admiral Kane Morrison stood on the bridge of the ESS Guardian and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. The deep space around Earth looked calm and peaceful as it always did, but Kane knew that peace would not last much longer. His hands gripped the metal rail in front of him as he thought about the reports that had been coming in from the outer colonies for weeks now. The Zephyrian Empire was moving toward Earth. Everyone in the military knew this day would come eventually. Humans had been expanding into space for 30 years now, building colonies on distant worlds and mining asteroids for resources. They had met other alien species before, some friendly and some not so friendly, but the Zephyrians were different. The Zephyrians were conquerors who took what they wanted and destroyed anyone who stood in their way. Captain Lisa Barnes walked up to Kane and handed him a data pad with the latest intelligence reports. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and serious eyes that never seemed to miss anything important. Lisa had been Kane's tactical officer for 5 years now, and he trusted her judgment more than anyone else on the ship. "The long-range sensors are picking up something at the edge of the solar system," Lisa said in a quiet voice. 12 large ships moving in formation toward the inner planets. They match the energy signatures we have on file for Zephyrian dreadnoughts. Kane looked at the numbers on the data pad and felt his stomach tighten. 12 dreadnoughts was more firepower than Earth's entire defense fleet could handle in a straight fight. Each Zephyrian warship was 3 times the size of anything humans had ever built, with weapons that could crack a planet's crust if they wanted to. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan turned around from his position at the communications station. Jake was young for his rank, only 28 years old, but he had proven himself in several smaller conflicts with pirates and hostile alien traders. His face looked worried as he spoke to the Admiral. "Sir, we're getting emergency transmissions from the outer colonies. The civilian population is starting to panic. Word is spreading fast about the Zephyrian fleet approaching Earth." Kane nodded and walked over to the main tactical display, where Lisa was updating the enemy positions. The 12 alien ships were moving steadily through space toward Earth at a speed that would bring them within weapons range in less than 6 hours. Earth's defense fleet consisted of 8 warships, all much smaller than the approaching dreadnoughts. "Have all our ships taken position around Earth?" Kane asked. "Yes, sir," Lisa replied. "The other 7 vessels are spread out in defensive positions. Captain Rodriguez on the Defender is requesting permission to engage the enemy at maximum range." Kane shook his head. "Tell all ships to hold position and wait for my orders. We need to stick to the plan." Dr. Amy Rodriguez entered the bridge from the science section of the ship. Amy was not a military officer, but a civilian scientist who specialized in alien technology and biology. She had been studying the Zephyrians for years, ever since first contact with their empire 3 years ago. Her research had been crucial in developing the Guardian's special capabilities. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the enemy communication patterns," Amy said, as she joined Kane and Lisa at the tactical display. "The Zephyrians are broadcasting their standard surrender demand on all frequencies. They're giving Earth exactly 1 hour to respond with total capitulation, or they will begin bombing our cities." Kane had expected this. The Zephyrians always followed the same pattern when conquering a new world. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demand immediate surrender, and then destroy any military resistance before taking control of the planet. It had worked for them 47 times before on other worlds. "What do we know about their commander?" Kane asked. Amy pulled up a holographic image of a tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes. "Hi, Admiral. Vexstar commands this fleet. He has personally overseen the conquest of 12 different star systems. The Zephyrians consider him one of their greatest military minds." Jake Sullivan spoke up from his station. "Sir, Earth Command is asking for our status report. They want to know if we should begin evacuation procedures for the major cities." Kane looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had trained for this moment for years, but none of them really knew if their secret weapon would work. When the time came, the Guardian looked like a normal human warship from the outside, but inside it contained technology that no other species in the galaxy had ever seen before. "Send a message to Earth Command," Kane said. "Tell them that evacuation will not be necessary. The Guardian will handle the Zephyrian threat." Lisa looked at Kane with surprise. "Sir, with respect, 12 dreadnoughts against our 8 ships is not good odds, even with our special capabilities." Kane smiled for the first time since the enemy fleet had been detected. "Lisa, we're not going to fight 12 ships with 8 ships. We're going to fight 12 ships with 1 ship that they won't see coming." Commander Tony Mitchell entered the bridge from the engineering section. Tony was a big man with strong hands that were always dirty from working on the ship's engines and systems. He had been the chief engineer on the Guardian since the ship was first built 3 years ago, and he knew every circuit and power coupling on the vessel. "Admiral, all systems are running at optimal levels," Tony reported. "The quantum displacement array is charged and ready for activation. The metamaterial hull configurations are tested and functional. The hybrid weapon systems are armed and targeting computers are online." Kane nodded. The Guardian was ready for battle, but not the kind of battle the Zephyrians were expecting. For 30 years, humans had been the underdogs in every conflict with alien species. They had survived by being clever, by adapting quickly, and by using their enemies' own technology against them. The Guardian represented the culmination of all that human ingenuity and determination. "Take us to battle stations," Kane ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens Earth." The bridge lights dimmed to red as the Guardian prepared for combat. Through the viewing screen, Kane could see the approaching Zephyrian fleet growing larger as they came closer to Earth. In a few hours, the most important battle in human history would begin, and Kane Morrison was ready to show these alien conquerors that humanity was not as helpless as they believed. "Hi, Admiral." Vexstar stood in the command center of his flagship and watched the tactical display show the positions of the primitive human vessels. The 8 Earth ships were arranged in a defensive formation around their home planet, exactly as he had expected them to be. In his 40 years of military service, Vexstar had seen this same desperate tactic used by every species the Zephyrian Empire had conquered. The human ships were pathetically small compared to his dreadnoughts. His intelligence officers had studied Earth's military capabilities for months before this invasion, and they had concluded that human technology was at least 50 years behind Zephyrian standards. The largest human warship, designated as the S-Guardian, was barely 1/3 the size of his smallest escort vessel. "Commander Zekti, what is the status of our weapons systems?" Vexstar asked his tactical officer. "All batteries charged and ready to fire." "Hi, Admiral," the younger Zephyrian replied. "Our plasma cannons have sufficient power to destroy all 8 human vessels in less than 10 minutes of sustained bombardment." Vexstar nodded with satisfaction. The humans had exactly 37 minutes left to accept his surrender demand, though he already knew they would refuse. Every species tried to fight back at first. It was a natural response to invasion, even when the situation was completely hopeless. On the bridge of the Guardian, Captain Lisa Barnes was coordinating with the other human ships in the defense fleet. To outside observers, it appeared that Earth's military was preparing for a conventional space battle, with ships taking standard defensive positions and powering up their normal weapons systems. "All vessels report ready for combat," Lisa told Admiral Kane Morrison. "The Defender and the Liberty are requesting permission to charge their main guns." "Grant permission, but tell them to maintain radio silence after this point," Kane replied. "We need the Zephyrians to believe we're following standard human military doctrine." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan was monitoring enemy communications from his station. The alien transmissions were being automatically translated by the ship's computer, allowing the human crew to understand Zephyrian battle chatter. Most of the alien communications were routine tactical updates, but Jake could hear the confidence in their voices. "Sir, the enemy commander is discussing attack formations with his subordinates," Jake reported. "They seem to think this will be an easy victory. One of their officers just said that human resistance should collapse within the first hour of fighting." Commander Tony Mitchell worked at his engineering station, making final adjustments to the Guardian's special systems. The quantum displacement array was humming quietly in the lower decks, ready to phase the entire ship out of normal spacetime. The metamaterial hull was configured for maximum stealth capabilities, and the hybrid weapon systems were charged, with power drawn from alien energy sources that the Zephyrians would never detect. "All experimental systems are green, across the board," Tony reported to Kane. "The displacement field generators are stable, the hull transformation mechanisms are responsive, and the weapon targeting computers have locked onto all 12 enemy vessels." Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood next to the science station, reviewing the tactical data that her instruments were collecting about the Zephyrian fleet. For 3 years she had studied every piece of information about alien technology that human intelligence agencies could provide, and all of that research had gone into designing the Guardian's capabilities. "Their ships are using standard Zephyrian shield configurations," Amy told Kane. "Powerful against conventional weapons, but with specific vulnerabilities that our hybrid systems should be able to exploit. Their sensors are very advanced, but they operate within predictable parameters." Kane looked at the main viewing screen, where the Zephyrian fleet was growing larger as it approached Earth. The enemy ships were massive and intimidating, bristling with weapons that could level entire cities. Any normal military force would be terrified at the sight of such overwhelming firepower, but Kane felt only calm determination. "Begin Phase 1 of the Deception Protocol," Kane ordered. The Guardians started to move away from Earth, along with the other 7 ships in the human defense fleet. To the Zephyrians watching from their advanced sensors, it appeared that the human vessels were retreating in panic at the sight of the superior alien force. This was exactly what Vextar expected to happen. "The humans are running, Commander," Zekti reported from his tactical station. "All 8 vessels are moving away from Earth toward the outer system. Their formation is breaking up, and they appear to be in disarray." High Admiral Vextar allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. "Excellent. Order all ships to pursue the fleeing human vessels. We will destroy them one by one before returning to claim their planet." The Zephyrian dreadnoughts changed course to follow the retreating human fleet, their massive engines pushing them through space at high speed. The alien commanders were eager to finish this battle quickly and add another conquered world to their empire's growing territory. On the Guardian's bridge, Communications Officer Beth Young was transmitting false distress signals on human military frequencies. Beth had been trained in psychological warfare tactics, and she knew exactly how to make the human retreat look genuine to enemy observers. "I'm broadcasting panic messages between our ships," Beth reported. "The Zephyrians should be intercepting communications about engine failures, weapons malfunctions, and requests for emergency evacuation. Their intelligence officers will interpret this as confirmation that human resistance is collapsing." Colonel Rick Hayes led a team of Marine soldiers through the Guardian's corridors, checking weapon storage areas and preparing for close combat operations. Rick had served in 3 different conflicts with hostile alien species, and he understood that space battles often ended with boarding actions and hand-to-hand fighting. "All Marine units are ready for deployment," Rick told Kane over the ship's internal communication system. "We have full combat loads and are prepared for any type of engagement the enemy might attempt." The human fleet continued its apparent retreat toward the outer edges of the solar system, with the Guardian lagging slightly behind the other 7 ships. The Zephyrian pursuit force was gaining ground steadily, their superior speed allowing them to close the distance between the 2 fleets. "High Admiral Vextar," studied the tactical display and calculated that his ships would be in weapons range of the human vessels in less than 20 minutes. The retreat was proceeding exactly as his military experience had taught him to expect. Once again, a primitive species was trying to draw the Zephyrian fleet away from their homeworld in a desperate attempt to buy time for civilian evacuations. "Prepare to open fire as soon as we reach optimal range," Vextar ordered. "Target the largest human vessel first. Once their flagship is destroyed, the other ships will surrender or scatter." The Zephyrian commander had no way of knowing that the largest human vessel was not trying to escape at all. The Guardian was leading the alien fleet exactly where Admiral Kane Morrison wanted them to go, far enough from Earth that the coming battle would not endanger the civilian population. As the two fleets raced through the darkness of space, the stage was set for a confrontation that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. "Hi, Admiral." Vextar watched the tactical display as his fleet closed in on the fleeing human vessels. The distance between the two forces was shrinking rapidly, and his weapons officers reported that they would be in firing range within 3 minutes. The human ships appeared to be running at maximum speed, but their inferior engines could not match the power of Zephyrian military technology. "All batteries prepare to engage," Vextar commanded. "Target the lead human vessel. Once we destroy their flagship, the others will lose their will to fight." Commander Zekthi worked at his tactical station, coordinating the targeting systems across all 12 Zephyrian dreadnoughts. The alien weapons were designed to punch through any known type of defensive shielding, and the primitive human vessels would offer no significant resistance to concentrated plasma fire. "Weapons locked onto the human flagship," Zekthi reported. "All ships report ready to fire on your command." "Hi, Admiral." On the bridge of the Guardian, Admiral Kane Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach through the main viewing screen. The Zephyrian ships looked like enormous metal predators moving through space, their weapon ports glowing with deadly energy as they prepared to attack. Kane felt no fear, only calm anticipation for what was about to happen. "Tony, status report on the displacement system," Kane said to his chief engineer. Commander Tony Mitchell checked his instruments one final time before responding. "All quantum field generators are at full power, Admiral. The metamaterial hull configuration is optimized for phase transition. We can activate the system at any time." Captain Lisa Barnes stood at the tactical station, monitoring the approach of the alien fleet. Her instruments showed that the Zephyrian ships were spreading out into an attack formation that would allow them to concentrate their fire on the Guardian while preventing any chance of escape. "Enemy vessels are moving into firing position," Lisa reported. "Their weapons are charging to full power. We have approximately 90 seconds before they open fire." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan intercepted the final communications between the Zephyrian ships as they prepared for battle. The alien commanders sounded confident and eager, discussing how quickly they expected to destroy the human resistance and return to Earth to claim their prize. "Sir, enemy command is giving the order to fire," Jake announced. "All Zephyrian weapons are locked onto our position." Kane took a deep breath and looked around the bridge at his crew. These men and women had trained for years to reach this moment, and now everything depended on technology that had never been tested in actual combat conditions. The fate of Earth and all humanity rested on whether their secret weapon would work as designed. "Activate the quantum displacement field," Kane ordered. "Take us out of phase." Tony's hands moved across his control panel, engaging systems that no other species in the galaxy had ever developed. The Guardian's hull began to shimmer as exotic energy fields surrounded the ship, preparing to shift it into a dimensional phase that existed alongside normal space, but remained undetectable to conventional sensors. "Hi," Admiral Vextar gave the command that he had given dozens of times before in similar situations. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the human flagship." 12 Zephyrian dreadnoughts unleashed their full firepower at once. Plasma beams and particle cannons sent streams of deadly energy racing across space toward the Guardian. The combined power of the alien weapons was enough to vaporize a small moon, and no known type of defensive shielding could withstand such concentrated destruction. The energy beams reached the Guardian's position and passed straight through empty space. Where the human flagship had been just moments before, there was now nothing but vacuum. The Zephyrian weapons found no target to hit, their deadly fire dissipating harmlessly into the darkness. Commander Zekthi stared at his tactical display in confusion. According to his sensors, the human ship had simply ceased to exist. There was no debris field, no explosion, no energy signature that would indicate the vessel had been destroyed. The Guardian had vanished completely from all detection systems. "Hi, Admiral. Our sensors show no trace of the human flagship," Zekthi reported with uncertainty in his voice. "There is no wreckage, no residual energy, no indication of what happened to the vessel." Vextar felt a cold sensation in his chest that he had never experienced before in 40 years of military service. Fear was an emotion that Zephyrian commanders were trained to suppress. But the complete disappearance of the enemy vessel was beyond anything in his experience or training. "Run full diagnostic scans on all sensor arrays," Vextar ordered. "The human ship must be there somewhere. Perhaps they have some type of advanced cloaking technology." On the Guardian's bridge, Kane Morrison stood in the same position he had occupied moments before, but now his ship existed in a dimensional phase that made it invisible to normal space. Through the viewing screen, he could see the confused Zep fleet searching for a target that they would never find. "Displacement field is holding steady," Tony reported from his engineering station. "All ship systems are operating normally within the phase We are completely undetectable to conventional sensors, while maintaining full observational and targeting capabilities." Dr. Amy Rodriguez monitored the alien communications as panic began to spread through the Zephyrian fleet. The enemy commanders were demanding explanations from their technical officers, but none of them could provide answers about what had happened to the human vessel. "Their military doctrine has no contingency for this type of situation," Amy told Kane. "The Zep have always relied on superior firepower and technology. They have never encountered an enemy that could simply disappear from the battlefield." Captain Lisa Barnes worked at her tactical station, using the Guardian's advanced targeting systems to lock onto each of the 12 enemy vessels. The ships remained visible to the human sensors, even though the Guardian itself was invisible to them. "All enemy vessels are within weapons range," Lisa reported. "Their shields are configured for conventional combat. They have no defensive preparations for the type of attack we can deliver from our current phase state." Colonel Rick Hayes and his Marine units moved through the ship's corridors, preparing for the next phase of the operation. The Guardian's capability to exist outside normal space-time was only the beginning of its tactical advantages over conventional military forces. "All combat teams are ready for deployment," Rick reported to Kane. "We can materialize boarding parties directly inside enemy vessels if required." Communications Officer Beth Young continued monitoring Zephyrian transmissions as confusion turned to fear among the alien crews. The enemy had gone from confident predators to frightened prey in the span of a few minutes, and their psychological state was deteriorating rapidly. "Sir, enemy command is requesting instructions from their home fleet," Beth reported. "Hi, Admiral. Vextar is admitting to his superiors that he has lost contact with the primary human target and requesting guidance on how to proceed." Kane smiled as he watched the alien fleet through the viewing screen. The Zephyrians were spread out across several thousand kilometers of space, their weapons still charged, but with no target to fire upon. Their formation was beginning to break down as individual ship commanders tried different search patterns. "Begin Phase 2 of the operation," Kane ordered. "It's time to show them what happens when they threaten Earth." The Guardian remained invisible in its dimensional phase, but its crew was preparing to demonstrate capabilities that would shatter everything the Zephyrian Empire thought it knew about human military technology. "Hi, Admiral." Vexstar paced across the command deck of his flagship, watching his officers run increasingly desperate scans of the surrounding space. 20 minutes had passed since the human vessel had vanished, and his fleet remained spread out in a search formation that was yielding no results. The confidence that had filled the bridge during their approach to Earth had been replaced by an uncomfortable tension. "Report," Vexstar demanded from his sensor officer. "All scans negative." "Hi, Admiral," the technician replied with obvious nervousness. "We have conducted full-spectrum sweeps across electromagnetic, gravitational, and quantum frequencies. There is no trace of the human flagship anywhere within a 50,000-kilometer radius." Vexstar felt his jaw tighten. In 4 decades of military service, he had never encountered a situation like this. Enemy ships were destroyed by superior firepower, or they retreated to fight another day, or occasionally they surrendered when faced with overwhelming odds. They did not simply disappear into nothingness. "Commander Zekti, deploy our fastest scout ships in an expanded search pattern," Vexstar ordered. "The human vessel must be hiding somewhere nearby." On the bridge of the Guardian, Admiral Kane Morrison watched the Zephyrian fleet disperse as smaller ships broke away from the main formation to search for their missing target. The alien commanders had no idea that their enemy was observing every move they made from a dimensional phase that existed alongside normal space but remained completely invisible. "Enemy scouts are moving away from the main fleet," Captain Lisa Barnes reported from her tactical station. 3 vessels have separated from their formation and are conducting wide-area searches. Kane nodded and looked at the tactical display, showing the positions of all 12 Zephyrian ships. The enemy fleet was no longer concentrated in a tight defensive formation, which made them vulnerable to the type of attack he was planning. "Tony, can we partially materialize long enough to engage a single target and then phase out again?" Kane asked his chief engineer. Commander Tony Mitchell ran calculations on his engineering computer before responding. "Yes, sir. We can drop out of Phase 4 approximately 15 seconds before our energy signature becomes detectable. That should be enough time for a precision strike against one enemy vessel." Dr. Amy Rodriguez studied the alien communication patterns that were being intercepted by the Guardian's listening devices. The Zephyrian crews were becoming increasingly agitated as their search efforts continued to produce no results. "Their psychological profile indicates growing fear and confusion," Amy told Kane. "The Zephyrians have never been in a situation where they could not locate and engage their enemy. Their military training does not include tactics for fighting an invisible opponent." Kane selected the most isolated enemy vessel on the tactical display, a heavy cruiser that had separated from the main fleet to investigate a false sensor reading caused by cosmic radiation. The ship was perfect for demonstrating the Guardians' capabilities, while minimizing the risk of revealing their position to the other alien vessels. "Lisa, lock weapons onto the isolated cruiser," Kane ordered. "Prepare for a 15-second engagement window." Captain Lisa Barnes programmed the targeting computers to focus on the enemy ship's main engine compartment. The Guardian's hybrid weapons combined human ingenuity with alien technology principles, creating energy beams that could penetrate Zephyrian shields more effectively than conventional armaments. "Weapons locked and ready to fire," Lisa reported. "Target acquisition is complete." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan monitored the communications from the isolated enemy cruiser as it continued its fruitless search for the missing human vessel. The alien crew was reporting negative contacts on all sensor sweeps, with no indication that they suspected any immediate danger. "Enemy vessel is maintaining standard search protocols," Jake reported. "Their defensive systems are configured for long-range scanning rather than close combat." Kane took a final look at the tactical situation before giving the order that would begin the most unusual space battle in recorded history. "Drop us out of phase and engage the target." The Guardian materialized in normal space directly behind the unsuspecting Zephyrian cruiser. For the first time in over 20 minutes, the human vessel appeared on alien sensors, but only for the brief moment it took to deliver a devastating attack. Tony Mitchell's hands flew across his control panel as he managed the phase transition. We are in normal space. Quantum displacement field is offline. All systems show normal operational status. Lisa Barnes fired the Guardian's main weapons at point-blank range into the enemy cruiser's engine section. The hybrid energy beams cut through the alien ship's shields like they were made of paper, causing massive internal explosions that crippled the vessel's propulsion systems. Direct hit on target engines, Lisa reported. Enemy vessel is dead in space and leaking atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Before the crippled Zephyrian ship could transmit a distress signal or return fire, the Guardian phased back out of normal space and vanished once again from all enemy sensors. The entire engagement lasted exactly 14 seconds, leaving the alien cruiser floating helplessly while the human vessel disappeared into dimensional invisibility. Phase displacement re-established, Tony reported. We are undetectable again. On the bridge of his flagship Vexstar received the emergency transmission from the damaged cruiser with growing alarm. The report described a human vessel appearing from nowhere, delivering a precise attack that disabled their engines, and then vanishing again before any response was possible. Hi, Admiral. The cruiser Vexanoth is reporting engine failure after being attacked by the missing human flagship, Commander Zekthi announced. They claim the enemy vessel materialized behind them, fired once, and then disappeared again. Vex stared at the tactical display, showing the position of his damaged ship. The attack had been surgical in its precision, designed to disable rather than destroy. The human commander was sending a message, demonstrating capabilities that defied everything the Zephyrian Empire knew about warfare. Recall all scout ships to the main formation, Vexstar ordered. We are dealing with an enemy that possesses technology beyond our current understanding. Communications Officer Beth Young intercepted the Zephyrian fleet communications as the alien commanders struggled to adapt their tactics to face an invisible enemy. The confusion in their transmissions was becoming more pronounced with each passing minute. Sir, the enemy is pulling their scattered ships back into a defensive formation, Beth reported. Their communications indicate fear and uncertainty about how to proceed. Kane watched the alien fleet regroup on his tactical display. The Zephyrians were learning that their traditional tactics were useless against an opponent who could strike without warning and disappear before retaliation was possible. Select our next target, Kane told Lisa. Let's show them that defensive formations won't protect them either. The Guardian began stalking the Zephyrian fleet like a phantom predator, preparing to demonstrate that nowhere in normal space was safe from an enemy that existed outside the conventional rules of warfare. The hunt had only just begun. High Admiral Vexstar stood alone in his private quarters, staring out at the debris field that had once been 9 of his 12 dreadnoughts. The human vessel had appeared and disappeared 7 more times over the past 3 hours, each attack more devastating than the last. What had started as a routine conquest had become a nightmare that challenged everything he believed about warfare. Only his flagship and 2 escort vessels remained from the mighty fleet that had approached Earth with such confidence. The Guardian had picked off his ships one by one, materializing just long enough to deliver precise, crippling attacks, before vanishing back into whatever impossible dimension it called home. Commander Zekthi entered the Admiral's quarters with another damage report. The young officer's face showed the strain of commanding a fleet that was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could not see or predict. Hi, Admiral. The destroyer Kexler has lost main power and is requesting evacuation, Zekthi reported. Their life support systems are failing, and they estimate no more than 6 hours of emergency oxygen remaining. Vexstar closed his eyes and felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. He had led countless successful campaigns across dozens of star systems, But this battle was unlike anything in his experience. The humans had revealed capabilities that made Zephyrian military superiority meaningless. "How many crew members have we lost?" Vexstar asked quietly. "Total casualties across all damaged vessels. Number approximately 8,000, Zekli replied. Most ships were disabled, rather than destroyed. But many suffered significant crew losses from decompression and system failures. On the bridge of the Guardian, Admiral Kane Morrison studied the tactical display showing the 3 remaining Zephyrian vessels. The alien ships had pulled into a tight defensive formation. Their remaining weapons pointed outward in all directions as they waited for the next attack that could come from anywhere. Dr. Amy Rodriguez monitored the enemy communications and reported increasing desperation in the alien transmissions. Their psychological profiles indicate complete breakdown of military discipline, she told Kane. The surviving crews are experiencing levels of fear that their species has rarely encountered. Captain Lisa Barnes had her weapons trained on the enemy flagship, waiting for Kane's order to deliver the final blow that would end the battle. The Guardian's hybrid systems had performed flawlessly throughout the engagement, proving that human ingenuity, combined with alien technology, could overcome any conventional military force. "Sir, we could destroy the remaining ships in the next attack," Lisa reported. "Their defensive formation provides no protection against weapons fired from dimensional phase." Kane considered his options as he watched the battered alien fleet through the main viewing screen. The Zephyrian Empire needed to learn that Earth was no longer defenseless, but complete annihilation of their fleet might provoke a larger war that humanity was not yet ready to fight. Commander Tony Mitchell worked at his engineering station, maintaining the quantum displacement systems that kept the Guardian invisible to enemy sensors. The exotic technology had operated without failure for over 4 hours, far longer than any previous test had required. "All phase systems remain stable," Tony reported. "We can maintain dimensional invisibility indefinitely, if necessary." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan intercepted a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship that made him look up from his communications station with surprise. "Sir, the enemy commander is attempting to establish direct communication with us. He's broadcasting on all human military frequencies." Kane paused and considered this unexpected development. "Put him through." The main viewing screen flickered and displayed the image of High Admiral Vexstar standing on his ship's bridge. The alien commander looked exhausted and defeated, his usual confidence replaced by the hollow stare of someone who had witnessed the impossible. "Human commander," Vexstar began, his voice carrying none of the arrogance that had marked his earlier surrender demands. "I am High Admiral Vexstar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. I request communication with whoever commands the vessel that has been attacking my forces." Kane stepped forward so that the alien could see him clearly. "I am Admiral Kane Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. You are speaking to the commander of the ESS Guardian." Vexstar studied Kane's face for a long moment before continuing. "Admiral Morrison, I have served in the Zephyrian military for 40 years. I have conquered 47 worlds and defeated every enemy that has stood against the Empire, but I have never faced an opponent like you." Kane remained silent, allowing the alien commander to continue. "Your vessel possesses capabilities that our science cannot explain," Vexstar admitted. "You have demonstrated that human military technology is far more advanced than our intelligence reports indicated. I am prepared to discuss terms for the withdrawal of my remaining forces." Kane exchanged glances with his senior officers before responding. "Hi, Admiral Vexstar. Earth did not ask for this conflict. Your empire came to our world with demands for surrender and threats of destruction. We have responded with the minimum force necessary to protect our people." "I understand," Vexstar replied. "But I must ask, what has humanity become? When we first encountered your species 3 years ago, your technology appeared primitive compared to ours. How did you develop such advanced capabilities in so short a time?" Kane smiled slightly. We became what was necessary to survive. Humans have a talent for adaptation, Admiral. We study our enemies, learn from every encounter, and improve our defenses based on what we discover. Dr. Amy Rodriguez stepped forward to join Kane in front of the viewing screen. Hi, Admiral. Your empire has provided us with excellent teachers. Every Zephyrian ship we captured, every piece of technology we recovered from your previous campaigns, every tactical manual we intercepted, all of it helped us prepare for this moment. The alien commander's eyes widened as he realized the implications of what the human scientist had said. You reverse-engineered our own technology and used it against us. Among other things, Kane confirmed. The Guardian incorporates principles from 4 different alien technologies, all improved by human engineering. We took your greatest strengths and made them our own. Vexstar was quiet for several seconds before speaking again. What are your terms for allowing my ships to withdraw? Kane had anticipated this question.